Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm still not feeling well yet. I know it's annoying you guys. It's annoying me a whole lot more. Believe you me, there have been things I've wanted to do. But today I'm going to talk to you about a show that has recently come. Well, I think 2 years ago it came back. And it's still going. It's a reboot, but I'm going to talk to you about the original show. And then tell you why I think everything else that's come behind that has been absolute garbage in comparison when you talk about kids' television. Now, Thunderbirds. Thunderbirds, when, oh, 5? I think it was 5, maybe 4. I don't know. 5 or 4. I got up on a Saturday. Well, no, actually, no. No, it was during the week. I remember this. It was just after, well, just during dinner. And Mum put on the television and said, "Why don't we watch this? I think you'll like it." Oh, hell, did I like Thunderbirds. Now, let me give you the basic premise of Thunderbirds from the start. Thunderbirds is about an organisation based in the South Atlantic on Tracy Island. They are the Tracy brothers. It's been so long, even though I watched an episode just a few minutes ago. Let's see if I remember them. Tracy, Alan Tracy, Scott Tracy, Virgil Tracy, Jeff Tracy, Alan Tracy, Scott, Virgil, Alan, Jeff. No, Jeff is in 5. Gordon is in 4. Okay. So, let's start this again. Scott Tracy. He is a pilot of pretty much an aircraft, which, well, no, I think I'm getting a bit too far ahead of myself. What International Rescue does is basically rescue people from dangerous situations using highly advanced machines, and basically you name a situation and they could rescue you from it. Fire, flood, bit topical, but flood, train car toppling off a cliff, you're hanging onto a cliff by a thread, space station having trouble, things like that. International Rescue are a group of people, the Tracy family. Jeff Tracy is their father, who created the actual International Rescue. Brains is, trust me, he's just called Brains, don't ask me why, is the creator of the actual machines. And these machines are some of the most beautifully designed machines that make actual goddamn sense. How can I put this? When you look at some like sci-fi films, you look at some machine. Well, oh yeah, I've got it. Have you ever watched Farscape? And you look at Moya. Now, Moya is, okay, she's biological, but she still makes absolutely no sense as an actual machine, even though she's biological. But if you take the Thunderbird machines, there was your 5 of them. The 5th one is a bit of a irrelevant beast. About that in a minute. There is Thunderbird 1, which is a vertical takeoff rocket. Now, what do I mean by that? A rocket, basically, it launches from Tracy Island vertically, getting high amounts of speed, and then goes VTOL. Basically, goes from rocket to a aircraft, and also lands VTOL. It doesn't need a runway. None of these vehicles need a runway. It's also the fastest craft. Gets to the situation first, piloted by Scott Tracy, who also has a lot of equipment to discover what the problem is. Say he's got a cam group. This was way before drones. This was in the 60s, by the way. This series came out. And he can launch things like a drone. And pretty much a drone, as in, this was way before drones were even thought of. They weren't even thought of in Star Trek, let's face it. And you pilot this camera drone and look around the disaster area. He also has telecommunications, and when I mean telecommunications, I mean telecommunications at the degree that is incredible even by today's standards. Pretty much it's data center, telling him everything about the situation they're in. He's got a load of... He hasn't got sensors, I'd say, but he's got equipment to understand what is going on in the danger zone. That is what Scott Tracy and Thunderbird 1 do. Now, Thunderbird 2, my favourite craft of all, is basically a truck. It's not actually a truck, but it is an aircraft. Think of it like a AC-1030, a large cargo carrying aircraft. But this aircraft has so many cool features. It's just like, why hasn't somebody in the military gone, okay, so how do we do this? Somebody thought of it. How do we make it work? What it is a jet-propelled aircraft that launches from Tracy Island on a ramp. I never really understood why, and I still don't understand why it does it on a ramp. Why doesn't it just VTOL? But hey ho. Launches from basically a ramp and shoots off, and has these things called pods, which fit into the center of the craft. And the rest of the craft is the front end, which has piloting facilities and a little bit of basically, like, it can lower a carriage. It's not really a carriage, but a lift, so that people, if Thunderbird 2 is hovering, it just lowers this lift and people can step in. And at the back, it has these powerful engines. They sounded powerful in the show, and I still think they are, well, they are a great sounding engine. I'm going to tell you guys, watch the first episode of Thunderbirds. It's on YouTube. It's easy to find. Go find it. Thunderbird 2 basically carries, say that's the front half there. There are the engines. It's got 2 struts connecting the two, and this big, huge pod thing in the middle that carries a ton of different equipment. It doesn't matter what it carries. I never cared what it carried. It was just like, I love that machine, and I love Thunderbird 1 as well. But that machine in particular, it's just like, oh, that thing sounds and acts so good. Okay, also, when Thunderbird 2 lands, by the way, this is piloted by Virgil Tracy, my top character in Thunderbirds. I think it was still when I was young, but I think it's today Virgil Tracy. It elevates using basically pneumatic rams. It basically drops the cargo, lands, drops the cargo carrier, and elevates itself up so that whatever's in it can get out. Whether it be a mole, which I'll explain later on in the video, Thunderbird 4, which I've got to explain later on because I've got to explain all the 5 Thunderbirds, and that's Thunderbird 4. So, it's just, why hasn't somebody done this in real life? I know it probably could never work, but the nearest thing I think we've got today is a Chinook helicopter, and that's barely scratching the surface of what Thunderbird 2 can do. Thunderbird, well, I think I've gone on enough about Thunderbird 2. Let's go to Thunderbird 3. The one craft I didn't like. Now, this is an interesting thing. The person who created it, called Jerry Anderson, didn't like Thunderbird 3 either, and I can see why. With the stories that Thunderbirds did, it didn't really work to use Thunderbird 3. Thunderbird 3 was a bit a one-trick pony. Thunderbird 3 is a spacecraft. Basically, it's a rocket which has... It's really weird to describe. I've probably put pictures up. I don't know. I might have just put this up as an entire vlog and not put pictures up, which is a little bit bad, but I might do a more in-depth showing of what I mean if you guys like this thing about Thunderbirds. Thunderbird 3 was the worst craft, piloted by Alan Tracy, the youngest brother in the Tracy group, and he was a git, in my personal opinion. I hated his guts. He was a complete and utter tool, let alone the 2004 movie, which I saw. Ugh. If you're a Thunderbirds fan, the 2004 movie, the only thing good about it was the fucking sound, the thing from Busted, and the rest of it was absolute garbage. But let's get back to Thunderbird 3. Thunderbird 3 is the spacecraft. Now, the spacecraft should be the best part of the show, but it wasn't, because all the stories that were done with Thunderbird 3 didn't really do anything. They didn't really know. Oh, sorry, my computer just completely froze just there for a second, and I just froze in the camera. Thunderbird 3 was a bit of a... Jerry Anderson never really liked writing for it, and I can see why. Because it's an absolutely useless Thunderbird. I never like Thunderbird 3. Thunderbird 3 also connects with Thunderbird 5, but I'll get to that in a minute. Now, I think I've said enough about... Well, now there's one more thing need to say about Thunderbird 3. Thunderbird 3 was designed with sort of like 3 legs that actually are rocket engines. Okay, they're the main propulsion. Now, the first time I saw the show, I was really confused when there's 3 legs, right? And there's like a center column, which is the main rocket. And Thunderbird 3, all the pilots enter straight up, basically the ass of Thunderbird 3. And what really sort of confused me is why they didn't go for something a little more interesting. Okay, enter by the ass. Okay, that's slightly comical. But what I thought they could have done with the centre of Thunderbird 3 was actually have sort of a drive system. Like warp drive or something. But have it sort of light up and have it so that the actual thing just like collapses spatial. It does something really cool, but they never did. I can see why, but I think there was a missed opportunity. So that's enough about Thunderbird 3 and Alan Tracy. Jeff. Is it Gordon? I think it's Gordon. I know there's probably a Thunderbird fan in there screaming, no, it's not, it's somebody else, but is it Alan? No, Jeff? No, it's Jeff Tracy. Jeff. Yeah, Jeff Tracy. Now, Jeff Tracy pilots Thunderbird 4. Thunderbird 4 is basically a submarine. Now, Thunderbird 4 is very interesting because it lives 100% of the time in Thunderbird 2 in something called Pod 4, which is Thunderbird 4 Pod 4. And that is used for water, every single water mission where you drop Pod 4. Now, I do mean drop, unlike all the other pods, which I never dropped from a height. Pod 4, which I think is really annoying. I'd love to know how they managed to get it, how they convinced people that by the time Pod 4 was on the water, Jeff Tracy was not, oh God, why the fuck did I choose this one? And sort of, he drops from quite high and you just go, ow. But this was the 60s. Nobody cared about health and safety. Thunderbird 4 lives in Pod 4. And it is a submarine. And that's all I can really say about it. It does nothing really special, in my view. It's got a load of gadgets, but nothing really that you'd say, ooh, that's its killer. That there is no killer app for Thunderbird 4. It's just Thunderbird 4. And it's a good Thunderbird. It's a really good Thunderbird. It's a hell of a lot better than Thunderbird 3 and Thunderbird 5. Now, then we'll get to Thunderbird 5, which I think was the biggest mistake I think that this show ever made, which has actually got retconned, and somehow they worked it out in the new one. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Thunderbird 4 was okay. I liked it. Now we get to Thunderbird 5, which was a bloody big space station. Well, it's not really big. It's about the same size as, I'd say, a mall. No, not really a mall. About the same size as a standard house, actually, that basically detected every single distress call from Earth. Now, there are two things about this. One, you're only one satellite. There is no way that you can detect every single radio signal from around Earth with just one satellite. Thank you, Independence Day, for teaching me that. I know, it's a weird thing to say, but I can never remember. Nobody can ever remember who was in Thunderbird 5 because he was such a lame character, and Jerry Anderson hated him. That's why he stuck him up there all the time. I think it was John Tracy. Hang on. Bird 5. Right, 5. Right, Thunderbird 5. John Tracy, yes. Thunderbird 5 is basically the worst Thunderbird. It was useless. And the two worst characters were basically swapped every so often so that they would stay up in the Thunderbird 5. And nothing ever interesting happened with Thunderbird 5. Oh, I'm just on the Wikipedia here. Length of this Thunderbird 5, 400 feet. It's not that big. Yeah, yeah. All right. Here's a good little piece of trivia. Never knew this. In this is about Thunderbird 5. In Terror in New York, Jerry Anderson was in charge of the script and removed John and Thunderbird 5, John Tracy and Thunderbird 5, from the story altogether, as he disliked both John and the design of Thunderbird 5. The only call came from was received from the television news. Thunderbird 5 was in operation as there was still communication between the Tracy brothers and Jeff Tracy Island. Jeff and Tracy, the Tracy brothers and Jeff back on Tracy Island. Yeah, it never really. Thunderbird 5 was rubbish. Literally, it was the most garbage Thunderbird there was. And you look at it and you think, wow, this is a load of crap. Because it just sits there and just receives all the calls. So why do I like this classic? And I still like it. I don't watch it very often. But I still have a fondness for it. I still have a really good fondness for it. And the reason is the storylines were so basic, but you were engaged in them, which was quite interesting compared to things like you watch. This was a long time ago. I heard about this show called Ben 10, and I watched a single episode. Didn't understand a single goddamn thing about it. But with Thunderbirds, you could watch any episode. You could basically say, give a child a copy of Thunderbirds, one episode, or any adult who's never seen it. Tell them to watch one single episode of Thunderbirds, and then tell them what was the story. The stories are all self-contained, but they are so good that you don't actually care. Believe it or not. What the storytelling does is it presents a problem really early on. Well, no, let's face it. No, it doesn't present a problem. It has a new location, say New York, and shows a piece of construction or a new piece of technology. Say somebody's moving the Empire State Building. It's not particularly one of my favourite episodes, but somebody's moving the Empire State Building not brick by brick, but basically put it on a track and basically moving it. This is the kind of thing they did in Thunderbirds. Really interesting. And then the story goes on for a little bit. Then the disaster happens. Now, there are two things that happen. One, the people who are near the disaster try and get themselves out of it. Every single time it fails. But they have a good go. They just take their time, try and work it out themselves, and they haven't got the technology. Then they call Thunderbirds. They basically put out a radio distress call. And for some reason, they have Thunderbird 5 pick it up. Yeah, great, fine. Thunderbird 5 relays it to the Tracy Island, and the Thunderbirds are put into action. Now, what is so interesting about this is